to Logistics Unplugged. My name is Brian Blaylock, and I'm your host, and I'm happy to jump in today to all things logistics. So let's pull back the curtain, take a look under the hood, and have a great discussion. And maybe today a little bit more, because I've got my good friend Will Baker here with me today, the Senior Manager of 3PL Brokerage from Blue Grace Logistics. And as a special part of our summertime shipping series, we're going to talk about some of the cause and effect of produce around that. That was a mouthful, wasn't it, Will?
That was, but thank you for having me, Brian. Definitely look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, and later on, we're going to have a little bit of fun throughout, Will, but later on, I've got a special mission for you, so I'm going to just plant the seeds, no pun intended, during produce season, but I'm going to plant the seeds now for the end of our conversation, where we're going to talk a little bit of summertime tunes.
Sounds good.
And I usually let you off the hook with one song, Will, but today I need you to come up with five, your top five summertime songs. And somehow we'll probably find out how much older I am than Will when I give you mines.
Oh, I'm sure we'll have some crossover. I'm an old soul, and
Okay,
but I was
perfect.
scrambling out there. The 15 minutes before this, you were like, hey, top 5 summer songs. That's hard. That's really
Okay.
hard for me to do.
All right. Well, we're going to be ready. So stay tuned for that, folks. We'll get there at the end. Will, get us started with talking a little bit about, for those that don't understand in logistics how much that affects us, talk a little bit about what produce season means in logistics.
Yeah, I mean, at its simplest form, produce season is simply when seasonal plants and food in that region are harvested. This can be many commodities, from annual plants to produce, and then even proteins in certain regions are very seasonal.
So we can harvest meat. I'm excited about that part. Will.
You can. It takes some time for meat to obviously grow meat on the bone, right? So
Didn't take me long.
there definitely is a little seasonality when it comes to the chickens, beefs, porks of the world. Yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, I know that some of these implications of produce, and it was interesting to me when I first got into this business. I didn't realize how much that affects just capacity and how much truckload volume there is in a particular state. So you can pick any culprits you want, but talk to me a little bit about how produce affects what comes out of certain states that don't really have a lot of manufacturing, don't really have a lot going on outbound other than that.
For sure. There's many different harvest seasons around the country, right? So we're constantly chasing the produce opportunity. Fall harvest season in the Northeast and the Midwest, that's one that we tap into every year. It's around September through October. You have the summer and winter transitions. I think when a lot of people think produce and transition, they're thinking of the West Coast, right?
Yeah,
a lot of that Northern California during the summer, and then Southern California and Arizona during the winter. You got the cross-border, right, which is pumping produce and those seasonal commodities into the U.S. almost 12 months a year, right? There's nothing that can't be grown in Mexico almost year-round. So, definitely during the summer months when domestic produce in the U.S. is at its peak, we tend to see less volume cross-border. And then the one that we're in right now, Southeast season, that is upon us. Good old Florida produce season.
Oh, yeah.
And when you talk about one of those states that don't have a lot of shipments outside of seasonal produce, that would be the state of Florida, right? The 9 months out of the year, it's pretty dead outbound unless you're talking imports, port business. There's not a whole lot of manufacturing that happens down here. There's limited availability of loads outside of the season, the produce season, which is April through June, pretty much.
Okay, and in the interest of fair disclosure, Will and I are actually sitting here in sunny Florida today as we're recording this. And interestingly enough, before we started recording this today, Will, you and I were chatting, and you were telling me a little bit about some of the changes in citrus in Florida over the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah, decades.
And I'm probably going to say it wrong, because when you were talking about canker before, I was thinking I needed some chapstick or something. So tell me a little bit about what happened, and tell me a little bit about the changes in that outbound produce coming out of Florida.
For sure. So canker, which is also known as citrus greening, occurs, I believe it's the first 3 to 5 years of the actual plant growth. It is distributed by a fruit fly. And then once that tree has canker, it cannot get rid of it, right? So it starts killing off the tree. It harvests a lot less fruit per tree.
Mm-hmm.
So you can imagine, a third of the amount of fruit that you could pull off the tree, or even less. It hurt a lot of farmers. And this has been happening for decades. I think the University of Florida has a whole program focused on removing or eliminating canker from Florida citrus, right? This used to be tens of millions of dollars, what we would send
Sure.
out annually. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's a fraction of what
Of what
Florida
it
citrus
was.
used to be. Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea until we started talking about this today. And then we think of Florida and the great citrus market that it is. But
Yeah. I mean, Indian River Valley, there was a lot of packing houses, a lot of farming out there. And today, it's a small percentage of what it used to be. So definitely disheartening. Hopefully, we can find a solution and get back on track. But a lot of those commodities are now flowing off the West Coast. A lot of those citrus commodities that we used to send outbound Florida.
yeah, and
That definitely there still is citrus, but not
Not what
where
it
it was
Not what it
at
was.
one time in Florida.
no, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad we still have the representation that we do, and that there's still a season that does follow that. But it is kind of a shame that it's not what it once was. But you mentioned the silver lining to that is, so some of those farms that didn't make it, what are they now, Will?
Condos,
Condos.
housing. Yeah. So with obviously the housing boom here in Florida over the past few years, it's been a destination state for families. We're definitely seeing a lot of those. A lot of those farmers are looking at their acreage, and they can make a lot of money selling it to a developer rather than harvest each and every year. So it's
Yeah, for
definitely
sure.
unfortunate.
That is unfortunate, but the flip side to that is that the one commodity that Florida will always have is sunshine, right? So
It is.
people are coming for that, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I know, Will, that I don't want to harp on Florida because we're sitting in it. Talk to me about some of the other geographies and some of the other produce-driven capacity that comes out relative to produce season, and some of the ones that really keep your attention.
Yeah, the next big one, obviously, that I know my team and a lot of other teams around the U.S. Are planning for is California season, right? Where this moves up to Castroville, Salinas, Watsonville. There's just so much produce that ships out of that region, so many different commodities, and we actually have a large part in that each and every year. So that's the one that we're planning for now. And one that's near and dear to my heart is fall apple harvest up in northern New York.
Very nice.
I remember as a kid, my parents taking me to the apple orchards and going out and seeing all the different type of apple trees and being able to pick which type of fruit that you wanted. So it was really cool. And that one, I always try to get back to New York in September, October, take my kids around and walk those apple orchards. It's just a beautiful time of the year.
That's very cool, Will. And that is one of those things I joked about before, that people like to go to those kind of romantic husband and wife getaways, or you and your significant other getaways to pick the apples in the apple orchards and all that.
Yeah,
that sounds a little bit rough for me if there's not a good TV in the hotel room when I get back. But as long as we've got that, and I can have a little bit of steak for dinner, then I think I'll be okay. But
there's good steak up there.
there's some good steak.
There
All right,
is.
we've crossed that line, and I'm gonna take you back across the country real quick. Again, Will, when you talked about California, talk about just the top 2 or 3 of those items in produce that are coming out of California. I know it's a big variety, but if you can hit the top two or three, maybe that are coming out of California as far as type of produce, what would that be on your list?
Yeah, for us, leafy greens, lettuce, romaine hearts, all of that stuff. I kind of put that all into one category. And then we do a lot of berries, a lot of strawberries from Northern California. Very particular commodity. You got to have the right equipment, late model equipment. Make sure that you're tracking those drivers. You have on-time pick, on-time delivery. Absolutely essential for product quality. But
100%.
those, I would say, are our top 2 focus coming out of Northern Cali as we go into the summer.
Yeah. When it's not a team that really has experience in produce, Will, I mean, the risk seems obvious, but talk to us a little bit about what goes wrong in produce, and talk to us about what happens when things aren't either picked up or delivered on time in produce.
Yeah, it sounds easy, right? You send a carrier, they pick up a load, and they deliver the load, right? Unfortunately, produce, especially out west, is not like that. You can have long dwell times at these shippers. So drivers sometimes are waiting 8 to 24 hours for a shipment in peak season, right?
Yeah.
As you can imagine, that really puts things behind. If you have a multi-pick load, then you have to get to another pick, or you're chasing picks around. You're checking at one facility, going to load at another to come back and catch your place in line at the first place, right? Having a process as a broker is essential to making sure that runs successfully. So we have operations reps that'll reach out, connect with the driver. They're checking in every hour to make sure that driver is being called to a door, or that we have some sort of an idea of when that one pick is going to be ready. Then we'll sometimes have to call buyers after hours, early in the morning, to go, hey, you know what? That shipper is running very low on romaine hearts. Can we sub this up for another commodity or another pack size, right? Those are things that those shippers really want to know. They need real-time information to be able to substitute a different produce commodity to get that truck on the road and make on-time delivery. If you're not as in tune with the drivers and you're letting them go all night without any help, those trucks are going to be delayed. Your product is going to be later than it has to be. So aligning with people that know the business, that know how to operate the process and not cut corners, really essential to success.
I agree with you 100%. I know we talked about this a little bit before in one of our previous podcasts, but if you are going to a grocery store, if you are going to the market, you are going to a specific market normally because of produce or some of the things that they do better than others, because a box of cookies is a box of cookies. But if you expect to have your fresh produce in the market, that's a reason to go or not go to that location, right? So that's how serious that is.
Yeah, you could definitely tell the difference between a fresh bag of cut lettuce that's been there 3 days and one that's been there 5 days, right?
100%.
So making sure that product gets into the trailer and gets delivered as soon as possible is essential to product quality.
100%. And now that I'm eating more of the food that my food used to eat, I'm paying I'm paying more and more attention to that, Will. So I appreciate you getting.
I'm on the same plan, Brad. I'm on the same plan. So.
Yeah, we see each other during the day.
We do.
So I'm appreciative of everything that goes into that. No, it's funny when you're talking about California. Everybody thinks of the movies being out there, and I'm kind of looking at you now like a director, right? You gotta have all the actors lined up, and you got to shoot the scene when it's ready to be shot, right? So
that's right.
Sometimes something happens, nothing's ready, and you gotta film a different scene, right? Get it done.
Yes, but I will say Bakersfield and Salinas are a heck of a lot different than Hollywood, California, or LA. So
I would agree with that 100% as well. So we appreciate all of that good work and all the things that you're doing to get that out of there. We talked about some of the things that drive capacity changes. And I don't know if people recognize how significant that is. When that's not there, when it's not produce, how much of a difference in whether it's cost or availability of drivers, carriers, trucks, how much of an effect does it have when that's over? Because produce season doesn't just affect produce, right? It affects the number of trucks that are available in the market.
That's exactly correct. The influx of seasonal volume can cause routing guide erosion.
Yeah.
But this forces a lot of contract freight to fall to the spot. And then at that point, it's anybody's guess as to what the price is going to be on that load, right? What we try to do is protect that contract freight. We try to have a aligned capacity provider that is hauling that same volume each and every week, right? But not only does seasonal produce have an effect on just those spot market rates, but it actually has an effect on the states around it. If you take Florida, for example, Florida gets so tight on trucks, they wound up a lot of brokers wind up deadheading trucks from Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina to cover that gap in capacity. So then you're seeing the whole Southeast market raise, right?
Yeah.
And because some seasonal commodities such as melons can go on vented vans, not only do you see refrigerated prices escalating, but you'll see van prices escalate as well.
Yeah, and it's hard to control if you don't. I hate to go back to that same analogy again, but if you don't have a good director that's keeping things moving the way that they should, it's kind of hard to keep that under control. So you making sure that your actors, if we can make your actors the drivers, I'm going to really screw this analogy up again. But if we can make your drivers the actors, they have to know when it's time to film their scene, right? They have to know we can put this together, and it's amazing the production that you put on by the time it's all said and done, Will. So I do have to tell you, because you've always been a great storyteller, and I always enjoy listening to some of your stories. And you better not hose me today by not having a good one. So I want to hear one of your. I want to hear a produce story. I want to hear something that's could be funny, laughable, terrible,
Yeah.
whatever direction you want to go with it. But tell me a little produce story, Will.
So, because we're going into the summer and it is Florida produce season, a big part of Florida produce is the import of fresh cut flowers, right? So you think
Okay.
Valentine's Day, Mother's
Absolutely.
Day. Valentine's Day is not so bad. Similar amount of floral shipments will be shipped in February as they do in May.
Mhm.
The difference in May, though, is that you have Florida seasonal produce to fight with, right?
Right.
So, when I started in the industry, we started moving a lot of flowers out of Florida. We were moving about 150 loads a week on average.
Wow.
And then when it came to Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, we would move about 2,000 loads
Oh,
in an
my
8-day
word.
period. Okay.
That's crazy.
My employees would be working sometimes 14 days straight on their shifts just to make sure that we did not miss anything, right?
Yeah.
Our drivers were there, their trucks were ready to go. But for that first 5-6 years, our floral vendors, to thank us for doing such a good job, would send up pallets of flowers right before Valentine's
Nice.
Day and Mother's Day every year. Well, I had a girlfriend at that time, and she was just amazed.
I like where this story's going.
Well, my girlfriend at the time was just amazed that I would never miss bringing her a bouquet of flowers and a nice card on Valentine's Day, Mother's Day. I'd get some
Very
for
nice
my
of you,
mom
though.
and my sisters. Yeah, I was just a thoughtful guy.
You were a thoughtful.
Well, little did they know those pallets of flowers were being dropped off at my office, and so it was just about grabbing as many bouquets as I wanted before leaving,
That's
and
crazy.
I was always the hero. Well, fast forward to that year 6, I was still working there, but all of a sudden this girlfriend came and worked for us.
Uh-oh.
So it was rolling up to Valentine's Day, and I started breaking out in cold sweats because
Oh,
the
no.
cat's out of the bag at this point, Brian. She is going to know the only reason that
the
I was
secrets
bringing
are
her
out.
flowers on time every holiday was because my vendors would drop it off for me. That was an awkward
That's-
conversation and a really nice
That's
dinner. so-
hilarious. I guess we truly did pull back the curtain today on logistics, Milvia. I see my director sitting over there looking at me like, he did that. So, great story, as I knew it would be. I'm scared to ask. That's not the same girlfriend now, right, Will?
No, it's not. No, it's not. But I did learn a valuable lesson.
It's important that we
Yeah,
always
yeah.
continue to learn.
That's right.
I like it. So, we always, before we close these out, Will, I always like to have a little bit of fun with you. The stories are great, but I always have a little assignment for you. And we talked about it at the beginning. Are you
Mhm.
ready for your assignment?
I'm ready. I'm kind of curious to see if we have any that
All right.
align here.
All right, and guests, feel free to let us know. Email Will or I one and to share some of yours. But I'm going to give you my top 5, and I know yours are going to be so much better that I'm going to let you go last.
All right,
and
all
we'll
right.
see if there's any crossover. Now, don't judge. Don't try to think of my age, but I will tell you the year that these songs came out to. So I'm starting with, and I'll go chronological on this. Will.
Okay.
I've got Surf City by Jan and Dean in 1963.
I do not have that.
You're not even a thought yet. That's not on your list. Then I've got Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles in 1969.
Okay. I know the song,
Yeah.
but no, it's not on my list.
And here's another cool one that none of you will know, but you have to look it up and listen to it. In the Summertime by Mungo Jerry, which was a British band in 1970. And if you were to hear that song in the summertime,
Okay.
I won't sing it because that would scare away our audience and we'd never recover from that. But fantastic song. And then I'm going to move forward a couple of decades, even though
Uh-huh.
most of you still weren't born. But I'm going to go with DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince back before Will Smith got first billing with Summertime from 1991.
Oh, okay. I like that. I
was
like
gonna say,
that
do
one.
Was there
Not
a
on
crossover
mine.
yet? Still
No,
not a
no.
crossover. Okay.
Oh.
And then I think that brings me to my last choice here, which I moved up another couple of decades, and I decided to move over to the countryside a little bit with Florida Georgia Line Cruise.
Oh, that's a good one.
That
And
is
see, that's one that I could have had on my list, but I didn't put it. I went a little different route. So,
Okay. All right.
You know, when
I'm anxious for this now. Let's hear it.
So I am a little bit of an old soul. So my number 5 was "Lovely Day" by Bill Withers.
Love it.
All right,
Great song.
you put that on at the beach. I mean, it's just a really good feel good song, right? When the Sun Goes Down, Kenny Chesney. I mean, there is not
Good
a
song.
time I think I've ever been to a beach or a bar and you don't hear that song,
Yeah.
right?
Great song.
Number 3, Something that I grew up with is 311, their song Amber. I don't know if you necessarily can call that a summer song, but it sounds summery to me. And every time I'm at the beach, you'll definitely hear
I'm
some
playing that one in
311.
my head right now. I can see
All
that
right.
summary. I could go summary with that.
Number two, my dad was a huge Beach Boys fan, and I
Okay.
grew up in New York, Long Island. So Good Vibrations
Love
from the
it.
Beach Boys.
Great
That
choice.
comes in at number two. And then my number one song is "Sun Is Shining" by Bob Marley. That Bob Marley,
great
anytime you're
song.
at the beach, is great. If you put that on your radio, everybody's gonna love it. So
Will is laughing at me and pointing now because he sees where in my indecisiveness, I'd scratched that one off right at the last minute before we recorded today. So that almost made my top 5.
we would have had a
Great song.
crossover.
We would have had a crossover.
Yes, we would have.
Can we re-record this movie? And can I just pretend that was mine? Hey, listen, we appreciate every week that you guys download these, that you subscribe, and that you listen in. That's going to be a wrap. Had a blast with you again today, Will. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great summer and have a great week, and we'll see you next Tuesday.